The soldier opened his eyes slowly, blinking against the soft white lights of the ceiling above him. Pain shot through his body as he tried to move, and he let out a quiet groan. His name was Eric, a human soldier from Earth, and the last thing he remembered was the battlefield, a blast, screams, then darkness. Now, he was lying on a medical bed inside some kind of military recovery room. His arms and chest were wrapped in bandages, and he could feel stitches along his ribs. Machines beeped softly around him, and the air smelled like steel and medicine, but something felt wrong. He turned his head to the side slowly, expecting to see a nurse or maybe a doctor. Instead, he saw a girl chained to the wall, sitting on the floor beside his bed. She was not human. Her skin had a light silver glow, almost like moonlight. Her eyes were large, purple, and filled with fear. She had soft facial ridges across her forehead and thin white hair that reached her shoulders. Her arms were wrapped tightly around her legs, and heavy cuffs were locked around her ankles and wrists, connected to the wall by glowing red chains. Eric blinked again, wondering if he was hallucinating. The alien girl didn't speak. She only stared at him, silent, unmoving, like a frightened animal waiting for the next blow. The door to the room opened suddenly, and two soldiers in gray armor walked in, laughing and chatting. One of them saw Eric awake and grinned. "Look who's back from the dead." The other chuckled and gestured toward the alien girl. "You like your reward, huh? Command said you deserved something special for what you did." Eric frowned, his voice hoarse. "What reward?" "The girl, man," the first soldier said, stepping closer. "She's yours now. Property of the unified army. Consider her a thank you gift for saving those outposts." Eric looked at the girl again, who lowered her head quickly, as if ashamed. Her shoulders trembled slightly, but she made no sound. He felt a cold knot form in his chest. He didn't like this. He didn't like any of this. "Take her back," Eric said, his voice sharp but weak. "She's not mine." The soldiers looked confused, then laughed. "Come on, don't be shy now. She's been trained not to talk, not to bite, not to run." They left after a few more jokes, the door hissing shut behind them. Eric tried to sit up, wincing from the pain. The alien girl didn't move, but her eyes were still watching him. Carefully, he could see the thin bruises on her arms, the dry skin, the faint lines of a burn near her neck, covered partly by the collar she wore. "How long have you been here?" he whispered, not expecting an answer. As expected, she didn't reply. But something in her eyes changed, something softer. Later that night, when the lights dimmed, Eric asked for a glass of water from the automated system. When it arrived, he noticed the girl watching the cup with hungry, dry lips. He held the cup toward her, slowly, carefully, like he would offer food to a scared animal. She hesitated, then crawled forward, the chains clinking as she moved. Her hands shook as she took the cup, her fingers cold. She drank fast, too fast, and then coughed, spilling some on her lap. She froze, eyes wide, as if expecting punishment. But Eric just said softly, "It's okay." The next day, more soldiers visited. They teased Eric again, calling him soft, calling her a waste. They said if he didn't want her, someone else would take her. But Eric said nothing. He just stared at the girl, who still hadn't spoken a word, but who now sat a little closer to his bed, her body slightly less curled in fear. That night, Eric whispered, "You're not a slave. I won't hurt you. I don't know what they told you, but I don't want this." The girl's lips trembled, and her purple eyes glistened. She still didn't speak, but one tear slipped down her cheek, and Eric knew, in that moment, this wasn't a reward. This was a prisoner, broken and discarded, handed to him like an object, and he was the only one who saw her as a person. He made a silent promise to himself. He would not treat her like they expected. He would find out who she was, and maybe help her find herself again, even if it meant going against everything around him. Days passed, and still, the alien girl said nothing. She sat silently near the corner of the room, her chained arms wrapped around her knees. The room was quiet. except for the sound of Eric's slow breathing and the low humming of machines. Every now and then, he would turn to her and speak, using soft words, hoping for a response, but her lips remained sealed. Eric didn't know her name, her language, or what species she was, but he saw the pain in her eyes, the way she flinched. At every loud sound, the way she stayed still like she was afraid to breathe. She never asked for food or water. So Eric started ordering extra meals from the system and placing the plate beside his bed. Near her reach, at first, she didn't touch it. She just stared, unmoving. But one night, when she thought Eric was asleep, she slowly crawled over and ate the cold food in silence. He saw her, but said nothing. The next morning, she sat a little closer to the plate. It was progress. "Do you understand me?" Eric asked one afternoon, his voice gentle. She looked at him with those big purple eyes, but gave no sign. Still, he had a feeling she did. Later that day, the door opened, and a soldier stepped in holding a data tablet. "Still not using her?" The soldier said with a smirk, "She's quiet, but I hear some guys like that." Eric's jaw tightened. "Get out," he said coldly. The soldier laughed, but walked out, shaking his head. Eric sat up in bed, pain still pulsing through his body, and looked at the girl again. "You're not a toy," he whispered. "I don't care what they say." She lowered her head, but this time her lips parted just slightly, as if she was trying to say something. But no sound came that night. Something changed. The base lights flickered during a storm outside, and thunder echoed through the sky. The alien girl suddenly screamed a sharp, frightened cry, as if the sound reminded her of something terrible. She curled into a ball, shaking violently, her breath fast and panicked. Eric, ignoring his injuries, slid out of bed and dropped to the floor near her. He didn't touch her, but spoke in a soft voice. "It's okay. You're safe here. No one will hurt you." She covered her ears, eyes squeezed shut, tears rolling down her cheeks. He stayed beside her the whole time, whispering until her breathing calmed. The next day, she surprised him when Eric woke. He found a small drawing on the floor, scratched onto a napkin using a piece of food as ink. It showed two stick figures, one small, curled in chains, and another standing nearby with one hand outstretched. It was him and her. He smiled, touched by the effort. "Is this you and me?" he asked. She gave the tiniest nod. Finally, some kind of connection. Over the next few days, Eric tried teaching her simple words. He pointed to objects and said their names, repeating them slowly. Cup, food, bed. Sometimes she repeated the words softly when she thought he wasn't watching. Her voice was quiet, broken, like someone who hadn't spoken in a long time. Then one night, when Eric was drifting to sleep, he heard it soft, so soft he thought he imagined it. "Lyra." His eyes shot open. He turned to her, as she looked right back at him. "What did you say?" he asked carefully. She hesitated, then touched her chest gently. "Lyra." Her name. Eric sat up, pain forgotten for a moment. "That's your name?" he said. She gave a small nod again, her eyes filled with a mix of fear and hope. It was the first real word she had said, the first piece of herself she had given him. From that moment, something shifted between them. Lyra began sitting closer. She ate when he ate, and sometimes even copied his movements. When he laughed at a joke from a passing soldier, she tilted her head like she was trying to understand laughter itself. But Eric knew it wasn't safe. One evening, a soldier returned to the room, pretending to bring a report. Instead, he tried to touch Lyra, reaching toward her with a smirk. Eric grabbed a metal tray and threw it at the man's head, yelling, "Touch her and I'll break your face." Security arrived minutes later and pulled the man away, warning Eric to be careful with his property. But Lyra? She looked at him differently after that. For the first time she smiled, even if it was only for a second. A small, shy smile. That disappeared almost instantly, but it was real. She still wouldn't speak much. But Eric didn't mind. He had learned one important thing. Lyra wasn't broken. She was just scared, and maybe, just maybe, she was beginning to trust him. The base looked normal from the outside: soldiers walking, ships landing, orders shouted through radios. But inside, quiet whispers had begun to spread. Did you hear? He hasn't touched her. They say the alien girl's still chained. But he feeds her like a pet. Maybe he's lost his mind. Eric felt it. Eyes followed him whenever he limped down the hallway. Conversations stopped when he entered the mess hall. And behind him, he always heard soft laughter, or sometimes silence more dangerous than any word. Back in the room, Lyra had started to speak little by little, 1 or 2 words at a time. She pointed at things and copied him. She even whispered. Safe when she sat beside him on the floor, but she still wore the collar. The red chains still glowed from the wall. Eric wanted to remove them. He had tried once using a tool he borrowed from engineering, but the moment he touched the collar, Lyra froze. Her breathing turned sharp. Her body shook. Please, she whispered in her broken voice. No. No more pain. Eric dropped the tool and never tried again. He knew she wasn't ready, but others didn't care about her healing. They cared about the rules, and Eric was breaking them just by being kind. One afternoon, Sergeant Keller stopped him outside the training yard. The sergeant was tall, scarred, and known for treating aliens like dirt under his boots. You're becoming a problem. Soldier, Keller said coldly. Your alien girl is assigned as a combat trophy, not a guest. She's not a trophy, Eric replied firmly. She's not a thing. Keller narrowed his eyes. You think you're better than the rest of us? That we're wrong and you're some kind of hero? He stepped closer. Let me make it simple. Either start using her the way command expects, or return her before someone else takes her. Eric's fists clenched, but he said nothing. He knew arguing would only make things worse. Back in his room, Lyra sensed the tension in his face. Bad men? She asked softly. Eric gave a short nod. They want to hurt you. She looked down, her fingers twisting in her lap. Happened before, she whispered. No, stop them. Until you. Eric felt his throat tighten. He wanted to protect her, but now even staying inside the base was becoming dangerous. Someone was going to act soon, either to punish him or to take her by force. The next day confirmed his fears. A friend of his, Lieutenant Rena, visited him secretly at night. She was one of the few who still treated aliens with some respect, and she trusted Eric. They're planning to move her, Rena whispered, checking the door nervously. Command's unhappy with your behavior. They say if you won't use the asset properly, they'll reassign her. Eric's blood turned cold. Reassign? He repeated. Rena nodded. To the frontline barracks. He knew what that meant. No protection, no rules, no mercy. Lyra would be passed from soldier to soldier, broken again. Possibly forever. No, Eric said, standing despite his healing wounds. I won't let them. Then you need to act fast, Rena said, handing him a stolen security badge. This will open the back gate. You didn't get it from me, understand? He nodded. Thank you. That night he sat beside Lyra, showing her the badge. Her eyes widened, confused. What is this? She asked slowly. A way out, he replied. We're leaving this place. She looked afraid. Outside. Dangerous. So is staying here, he said. They'll take you. Hurt you again. Lyra was quiet for a long time. Then she touched her collar with shaky fingers. If leave free? She whispered. He nodded. Yes, free. Then I follow you, she said, voice shaking. Even if danger. Eric didn't sleep that night. He reviewed escape maps, timed patrols, and rerouted camera feeds. He wasn't just escaping for her. He was defying a system that thought it owned people like her. A system that called pain a reward. He gave Lyra some human clothes to blend in: a jacket, boots, and a hood. She stared at the boots, unsure how to wear them. When she finally stood, clumsy but upright, Eric smiled. You look like someone ready to fight for their future. She gave him a shy glance. With you. I tried. They were almost ready, but Eric knew. One mistake. One wrong step, and they would both be caught, and this time, there would be no second chances asterisk. The night before the escape, the base was quiet. Rain fell softly on the metal roof panels, making a steady tapping sound. Inside the room, Eric sat beside Lyra on the floor, checking a small map he had drawn. She watched him silently, wrapped in the oversized jacket he had given her. "North Gate," Eric whispered, pointing to the tiny red circle he had marked. 3 guards, maybe. 4, but if we time it right, we'll slip through when the patrol shifts. Lyra nodded slowly, repeating the word. North. She was learning quickly now. Each day with him, her voice grew steadier, her eyes brighter, but the collar still remained around her neck, a glowing red ring with tiny alien symbols etched into it. It was more than just a tracker, Eric had come to believe. It was a reminder of ownership, of control, of pain. "Can I try again?" he asked gently, holding a small tool he had hidden inside his bed frame. Lyra hesitated, her hand trembling as it touched the collar. "Pain. Before," she said, her voice low, "burned me. Made me scream. I'll stop the second it hurts," Eric promised. I hate seeing this on you." She gave a small nod, and he slowly brought the tool to the edge of the collar. There was a faint click, then a buzz of energy. Lyra flinched, her body shaking, but no pain. A soft green light blinked on the side of the collar for the first time. "What is that?" Eric whispered, surprised. He looked closer and noticed something strange beneath the outer shell of the collar. Tiny wires connected to her skin. Like it was implanted. His heart sank. "They didn't just put this on you. They put it in you." Lyra's eyes filled with tears. "Was taken by force," she whispered. "Didn't fight. So they punished." She curled her arms around her knees, hiding her face. Eric wanted to scream, to punch the wall, to throw the collar out the window, but all he could do was be calm for her. He put the tool down, placed his hand gently on her shoulder. "You didn't deserve any of that," he said quietly. "They're the monsters, not you." After a while, she whispered, "Do you still want to help Emmy?" "Always," Eric said without hesitation. "I don't care what they did." "You're not broken, Lyra. You're strong." She looked at him, her purple eyes glistening. "Strong? Because you see me." That night, Eric had a visitor. Rena again. She slipped into the room, her face pale. "You need to leave tonight," she said quickly. "They've moved up the transfer. They're coming for her at dawn." Eric stood. Instantly. "Who?" "Sergeant Keller and 2 others, Rena replied. "They say you've been compromised. That you're too soft for war." She handed him a small chip. "This is the override for the back gate's lockdown system. But it'll only work once." He took it and looked at Lyra, who stood near the window, watching the dark sky. "We'll go now," he said. But as he turned, Rena caught his arm. "There's something else," she said, her voice serious. "I found her file." "The real one," Eric blinked. "What do you mean?" "She's not just some random captive," Rena said, lowering her voice. "She's a healer from the alien resistance, from a royal line. Her people were peaceful. They helped wounded from both sides during the war. She was taken during a cleanup operation gone wrong, labeled as dangerous, and sold to the barracks under forged orders." Eric felt a chill crawl down his spine. "She was never supposed to be here." Rena nodded. "No, she was supposed to be protected under galactic law. But someone in command buried the truth." He looked at Lyra again, no longer just a frightened girl. She was someone important, someone powerful in her own way. And yet, they had chained her like an animal. "Thank you," he said to Rena. "Please delete everything you found. If they trace it back to you." "I already did," she whispered, then smiled faintly. "Go, get her out. And stay hidden." As Rena left, Eric turned to Lyra. "We're going now," he said. She nodded, not with fear, but with calm. "Then we be free," she said softly. He helped her gather what little supplies they had, a water pouch, some bread, and the chip Rena gave them. He opened the maintenance hatch under his bed, leading to the old ventilation shafts. "Stay close," he whispered. She followed him into the darkness, crawling behind him on hands and knees. The metal creaked under their weight, and dust filled the narrow space. But she didn't complain, she didn't panic. She trusted him, and Eric, more than ever, was ready to protect her, because now he didn't just see her as a victim. He saw the truth. Lyra wasn't a slave, she was a survivor, and tonight, she was going to take her first step toward freedom. Eric and Lyra crawled through the narrow vent, one slow inch at a time. The metal walls around them groaned with every shift, every breath. Their hands were covered in dust, and the air was dry and tight. But neither of them complained, Eric knew. Every inch of the base from his engineering duties. He had memorized the shift rotations, the blind spots, and the hidden cracks in the system. Now every detail mattered. Behind them was a nightmare waiting to swallow Lyra. Ahead, freedom, if they could survive the night. "Almost there," Eric whispered, wiping sweat from his brow. He glanced back at Lyra, who nodded, her eyes sharp and focused despite the tight space. She had changed. The scared, silent girl who once flinched at every movement was now crawling beside him with purpose. They reached a metal grate that overlooked the storage wing. Eric held up a finger, signaling her to stop. Below, 2 soldiers passed, carrying supply crates, laughing and chatting without care. He waited for their voices to fade before carefully unscrewing the grate. It dropped down silently, and Eric jumped, landing on his knees. He turned and reached up, helping Lyra down gently. As she landed, she whispered, "Now?" "Soon," he replied. "We go through storage, then engineering, then to the north gate." He pulled out the security chip Rena had given him. "This will open the lockdown gate for a few seconds, no more." Lyra touched the collar around her neck, which now flickered with a dull orange light. She whispered, "They'll track me, won't they?" "I've disabled the signal temporarily," Eric said. "But once it powers back on, they'll know we're gone. That's why we can't stop." Lyra nodded again, clutching the fabric of her jacket close. "I follow you," she said. Softly, they moved through the storage room, hiding behind tall crates, stepping only when the hallways were empty. Eric's injury still ached, but adrenaline pushed him forward. He was not just running for his life, he was running for hers. They reached the engineering room, dark and cold, filled with humming machines and spare parts. Eric knelt beside a power box and inserted the chip. It blinked green, then flashed red for a second. "That's it," he said, heart pounding. "We have 15 minutes before the system resets." Suddenly, a voice echoed through the room. "Freeze!" Eric turned, and his blood went cold. Sergeant Keller stood in the doorway, weapon raised. 2 soldiers behind him. He smirked. "I warned you, soldier." Lyra stepped back, but Eric moved in front of her, arms outstretched. "Don't touch her," he said, voice trembling but firm. Keller stepped forward, his eyes filled with anger. "You want to throw away your rank, your future for this thing." "She's not a thing," Eric growled. "She's someone you people hurt. She's a slave." Keller spat. "A breathing asset. Not your responsibility. She was a healer." Eric shouted, "She was royalty. You people broke every law." Keller's smile faded. "You've seen the file," he muttered, raising his weapon. "That was a mistake." Just then, Lyra stepped forward, her eyes glowing faintly with inner light. She raised her hand not in fear, but in defense. "Don't," she said clearly, her voice low but powerful. "No more." Eric took the chance, grabbing a metal rod from the wall and swinging it into the side of the nearest soldier's leg. The man fell with a grunt, dropping his weapon. Lyra grabbed it and pointed it toward the other's hands, shaking, but steady enough to fire if needed. "Back away!" Eric shouted. Keller raised his hand slowly, but his glare stayed sharp. "This won't end well for either of you," he growled. Eric didn't reply. He and Lyra backed out of the room. keeping the weapon aimed forward once in the hallway. They ran faster than either had moved in days. The alarm hadn't triggered yet, but the countdown had started. They had only minutes. They reached the north gate, tall metal, locked tight. Eric jammed the override chip into the panel, praying it would work. A soft beep. Then green light. The gate began to slide open slowly, painfully slow. Come on, Eric muttered, watching the opening grow. Behind them, voices shouted. Boots pounded the floor. Soldiers were coming, the moment the gap was wide enough. Eric pushed Lyra through, then ducked out himself. The gate slammed shut behind them just as Keller's team appeared around the corner. Too late to stop them. Outside, cold night air hit their faces like a slap. The forest beyond the base stretched out in dark silence, full of unknown dangers, but also hope. Lyra looked up at the stars, then at Eric. "We're out?" she whispered. He nodded, chest rising and falling fast. "Yes," he said, smiling. "We're free." For the first time, Lyra smiled fully, no fear, no sadness, just light. Then she took Eric's hand in hers. "Together," she whispered, and together, they ran into the night. The night forest was cold and wild. Tall trees reached toward the stars, their shadows long and eerie. Eric and Lyra ran through the thick undergrowth, their breaths heavy, boots crunching on fallen leaves behind them. The alarms of the base screamed into the sky. Red lights flashed on tall towers, and searchlights swept across the dark tree line like hungry eyes. They knew escape wouldn't be easy. The hard part had just begun. "This way," Eric whispered, pulling Lyra gently by the hand. He had scouted this path weeks ago, just in case. A hidden trail that ran through the back of the woods, leading to a long-forgotten supply outpost that hadn't been used in years. Lyra followed without a sound, her eyes wide, her breathing sharp. Her collar blinked with a dying orange light, warning it would soon reactivate. They had to move fast, or they would be tracked and captured again. A sound snapped through the trees behind them. Boots, branches breaking, voices shouting. "They're close," Eric said through gritted teeth. He pulled her down, hiding behind a thick tree trunk. The two crouched in the shadows as a patrol passed, rifles in hand, flashlights sweeping low. Lyra placed a hand over her mouth, eyes trembling with fear. Eric put a hand over hers and nodded gently. "We wait," he whispered. "They'll pass." Minutes felt like hours. When the footsteps finally faded, they both stood and kept moving. Slower now, quieter. Suddenly, Lyra tripped, falling to her knees with a gasp. Her leg was bleeding, scraped open on a hidden piece of rusted metal sticking from the ground. Eric rushed to her side, pulling out a cloth and pressing it against the wound. "I'm sorry," she whispered, tears welling in her eyes. "I slow you down." "No," Eric said quickly. "You're doing great, Lyra. Don't ever say that." He tied the cloth around her leg, then looked around. "We need to hide until morning." They found a hollow under a fallen tree, just big enough for two people to crawl inside. It was damp and cold, but it offered shelter. Eric sat down with his back against the wood and pulled Lyra close to keep her warm. Her head rested on his shoulder, and for a long time, neither of them spoke. "I was so scared," she whispered. "Finally, back there." Every day felt like dying. Eric turned to her, voice gentle. "You're not there anymore, Lyra. You're free now." She gave a weak smile. "You made me believe. Not all humans are cruel." "You made me believe," Eric replied, "that some things are worth risking everything for." The moment was soft, but the peace didn't last long. A sudden light flashed through the forest, bright, blinding, unnatural. A search drone, flying low, scanning the ground with a humming beam. "Get down," Eric whispered, pushing Lyra beneath the roots. The drone paused above them, sensors clicking, its scanners humming louder. Eric held his breath. He knew their collar tracker might have reactivated by now. The drone's light turned red. It had found them. "Run!" Eric shouted, pulling Lyra up as the drone opened fire. Energy blasts struck the tree, burning deep holes through the trunk. Sparks flew as they sprinted through the woods. Dodging trees, ducking branches, Eric turned and fired blindly at the drone with the weapon he had taken back at the base. It missed, but it gave them seconds to hide behind a large boulder. "We can't outrun it," he yelled over the sound of gunfire. Lyra looked down at her collar, now glowing fully red. Then something in her eyes changed. "Stay down," she whispered. "What?" Eric asked, confused, but Lyra stepped forward, hands trembling, her collar blinking rapidly. She took a deep breath and raised both arms toward the drone. For a second, nothing happened. Then her body began to glow. A soft white light formed around her fingertips, pulsing with power. Eric watched in awe as the air around Lyra shimmered like heat. She screamed, not in pain, but in strength, and a blast of raw energy burst from her hands. Slamming into the drone, the machine sparked, spun wildly in the air, and exploded, crashing into the ground with a burst of flame. Silence followed. Eric stood frozen, staring at Lyra, who dropped to her knees, exhausted but still glowing faintly. "What was that?" he asked softly. Lyra turned, her breathing heavy, her voice shaking. "My people, we don't fight, but we defend. I was a healer and a protector, until they locked me." Eric rushed to her side, holding her gently. "You're incredible," he whispered. "You saved us." She looked at him, tears of power and relief in her eyes. "No," she whispered back. "You saved me first." Together, they watched the fire from the broken drone fade in the distance. They weren't safe yet, but for the first time, they weren't just running. They were fighting back. The forest was quiet now. Ashes from the destroyed drone drifted slowly in the air like dark snow. The fire had died, but the warmth between Eric and Lyra had only grown stronger. They walked side by side, deeper into the woods with no clear path ahead, only stars above them, and the feeling that every step forward was a step toward something better. Lyra's collar, still blinking faintly, felt lighter now, after she had used her energy to destroy the drone. Something in the device had broken. The pain control chip inside it was fried, and the tracking signal had faded to almost nothing. She touched it gently, and for the first time, it didn't hurt. "I want it gone," she whispered. "All of it?" Eric nodded. "When we get to the colony, I'll find someone who can take it off for good." "Colony?" she asked, tilting her head. He smiled. "A place far from the military, where humans and aliens live together in peace. I heard rumors during the war. A hidden valley past the canyon ridge. I think it's real." Lyra looked up at the sky. "So much world I never saw," she said. "Only chains. Only walls." Eric placed his hand on her shoulder. "Not anymore," he said softly. "No more cages." They walked for 2 more days, resting under trees, sharing food, and whispering stories. Eric told her about Earth, about music, rain, books, and sunsets over oceans. Lyra told him about her homeworld, how the trees there glowed at night, how the rivers healed wounds, how laughter was used as medicine. For the first time, Lyra laughed, a soft, surprised sound like a song that had been buried too long. Eric laughed too, not because the story was funny, but because hearing her joy was enough to heal his own pain. On the 3rd day, just as the sun rose over the mountain's edge, they saw it. A tall fence made of vines and branches, not metal, and beyond it, small homes built into trees, glowing gently with soft lights. Alien children played with human ones, chasing a floating ball through the air. And people of all kinds smiled without fear. It was real, the hidden colony. A guard at the gate spotted them and raised his weapon cautiously. "Name and purpose?" he asked in a low voice. Eric stepped forward, keeping his hands up. "My name is Eric Grayson, former human soldier. She is Lyra, a captive I helped escape." The guard looked at Lyra, his eyes softening when he saw the collar. He opened the gate without another word. "You're safe now," he said. "Come inside." Inside the colony, Medics checked Lyra's leg and gently removed the collar. She winced at first, but it came off cleanly. The metal ring fell to the floor with a soft thud. Lyra stared at it for a long moment, then kicked it into the fire pit nearby, watching it melt into nothing. That night, the colony leaders called a gathering. They asked Eric and Lyra to share their story, what they had escaped from, what they had survived. Eric spoke plainly, his voice calm but steady. "I was wounded in war," he said, "and when I woke up, they told me she was a reward. But she was never a reward." He looked at Lyra, then continued, "She was a prisoner, a healer, a person." He paused, his voice trembling. "And I chose to see her, not as a gift, but as a life worth protecting." The crowd was silent. Then someone began clapping, then others, and soon the entire hall echoed with applause. Lyra stood slowly beside Eric. She didn't say much, just one simple line, "I was forgotten until a human saw me." Tears filled the eyes of many. They knew that pain too well. Days passed, and the colony accepted them fully. Eric was given a job helping with security and repairs. Lyra became a healer again, using her soft hands and glowing energy to mend wounds both inside and out. One afternoon, as the sun began to set, Lyra stood by a field of glowing flowers, her fingers brushing gently across the petals. Eric approached quietly, watching her with a smile. "Do you ever miss the stars?" he asked. She turned and smiled. "I used to fear the sky," she said. "Now I dream under it." He stepped closer. "You know," he said softly, "you were never meant to be a reward." She tilted her head, then, "What am I?" Eric looked into her eyes. "Your freedom," he said. "Your proof that kindness still matters." She took his hand and held it tightly. "And you," she said, "you're the one who gave me back my name, my voice, my life." They stood together in the fading light, not as a soldier and a slave, but as two souls healed and whole, and the stars above them shined brighter than ever before.